you've arrived in Mexico City. From here, you've got to make your way to the metro station in Terminal 1. So if you find yourself in Terminal 2, you may need to take the little monorail or whatever it is that gets you from Terminal 2 to Terminal 1. If you're having any difficulty finding how to get to that interterminal train, you should notice that there's several people wandering around the airport with a vest on, indicating that they're there to help you out and give you information. So ask them for directions, they'll put you in the right direction. Get yourself to Terminal 1, and from there, if you can't see the signs to the metro, again, just find somebody who will provide you with the information and you're on your way. Now, once you get to the metro station, you'll find it's very easy and cheap to get around Mexico City by metro. First thing you've got to do though is to purchase a card, just one of these things here, and you can do that just by going to one of the windows. It'll cost you 15 pesos, and after you purchase the card, put some money on it. Now, just a caution here. So when I first bought my card when I arrived, I just handed over 50 pesos, said I wanted to buy the card, put 35 pesos on there. But then when I did a top up later on, I found out that they didn't give any change. So I handed over another 50 and I asked to only put 30 on there, and the lady just put the whole 50. So just beware of that. You wouldn't want to hand over a 500 peso note if you only wanted 20, 30, 40 or whatever on there. Okay, so whatever you hand over appears to be what is going to go on the card. So just a word of caution. Now, another thing to be aware of is that even though the metro stations are fantastic for getting around Mexico City, with hindsight, they're not necessarily going to be your best option for getting from the airport when you arrive to wherever your accommodation is. And whether it's a good option for you or not will be really dependent on how much luggage you've got. And that's because some of these stations either don't have escalators or don't have working escalators, and you'll find yourself faced with a real lot of stairs getting up and down and between, changing from different lines. Even though on the chart the lines seem to overlap and it looks like you just get off one platform and onto another, in reality you may find that you have to walk 300, 400, 500 metres. There's tunnel networks between these stations and platforms, and on occasion you're going to have to go upstairs and downstairs and then up again and down again. I know on one occasion it wasn't coming from the airport, but it was going somewhere else. I stopped counting at 200 stairs, so you could be in for a bit of a shock if you've got to carry a suitcase up and down the stairs. So just be aware of that. It's certainly the cheapest option to get from the airport to wherever you're going to go, but it's not going to be your best option if you have heavy luggage that you've got to carry upstairs, in which case I'd be suggesting going for a taxi or an Uber. Now, if you decide to stick with the metro, the downside is all the stairs. The upside is the surfaces between all these stairways are really smooth marble, so perfect if you've got a trolley suitcase. Very easy to wheel your suitcase around. As I said though, it's really just if you get stuck heading up, going up staircases and down staircases, if there's no escalators or if the escalators aren't working. The trains are safe. I use them all the time. For the week that I was in Mexico City, in the evenings they're safe. I think I wasn't out too late. I think, the latest I would have got the metro would have been 9 p.m, 9:30, something like that, so it wasn't super late. But I found, no problems whatsoever. The train's a little bit old, a little bit run down, a little bit dirty. I guess you just live with that. One of the good things though is they seem to run on all the lines that I used. The trains seem to come and go every 2 or 3 minutes, so Certainly no long waits to get from A to B. So one of the interesting things about the train platforms is up on the right-hand side is a section only for women and children. And when I first saw that, I thought that's a little bit strange. But then when you're getting a train in a busy time, when everybody is piling into the trains, it's like a human version of Bernoulli's theorem. It can be quite physical. So I think that area of the train platform is just to allow ladies and kids to get on the train in an orderly way without being pushed and shoved and all that. So I think that's probably quite a good idea. Metro card isn't just for trains, the underground, it's also for buses. Not all buses, as I'll come to, but you'll notice that the red buses and the blue buses that you see around the city, you can use your Metro card for those as well. There are other bus lines, so if you use Google to assist you to get from A to B, it may get you on the Metro for a while, and then all of a sudden it'll put you on a green bus or purple bus or some other coloured bus, and they don't operate on the Metro card system. So to use those, you've got to pay cash when you get on, no change given. So you're going to need to have some coins. The green buses were $7.50 for me, 7 pesos and 50 whatever centavos maybe. These buses are unlike the red buses or the blue buses. They're quite run down, various states of dilapidation. I mean, some of them look like they belong in a junkyard. They do get you from A to B, but the catch is, as I said, that you need to have coins on you. No changes given, so you need to have the exact money or a little bit extra, so to ensure that you've got adequate fare to get around. There is a massive bus station in the north of the city, probably the biggest bus station I've ever been in, for buses leaving Mexico City to get to surrounding cities and towns. So the bus station in the north, it was more like an airport actually. It had 6 or 7 gates, and each gate had, 10, 12 buses departing. Beautiful, nice flat marble floors, so if you've got your trolley suitcase there, you'll be able to get around the bus station without any drama. Now, the other part of the metro system is cable cars. There are 3, they call them Cablebus. There are 3 cable bus lines. 2 of them are serving the northern suburbs of Mexico City, suburbs up in the hills, or neighbourhoods up in the hills, and apparently the introduction of the cable bus cut the transit time from those neighbourhoods into the centro by over an hour compared with travelling by roads and buses and so on. So the 3rd cable bus line is just south of a wealthy suburb called Palenque. Not too sure what that line is there for, because it didn't seem excessively hilly. There were plenty of roads, the metro bus available in the area, so not too sure why that's there. That was the line I chose to go on, just to experience the cable bus. Very easy, 7 peso fare compared with 5 peso on the metro. It was just easy to get from A to B. Taxis, never took a taxi while I was in Mexico City. The official taxis are a white car with a pink roof. Rideshare, Uber and Didi seem to have approximately equal shares of the market. I only took Uber once when I was there, and that was to get from Roma Sur, where I was staying, to the northern bus terminal to get a bus up to San Miguel. Now, I could have taken the metro to get there, but as I've already described, I sort of was once bitten, twice shy after travelling from the airport to Roma with my luggage. I decided it was going to be a little bit easier to take an Uber, and it was. It just operated like Uber in any other major city, apart from Santiago. See my Santiago video for how Uber operates down there. And just while I'm on that, please like and subscribe and support this channel if you could. That would be fantastic. So where should you stay in Mexico City? I'm going to talk about 4 suburbs. I stayed in an area called Roma. Right next door to it is another neighbourhood called Condesa. So both those neighbourhoods were full of cafes, restaurants, well serviced by metro, and really nice neighbourhoods full of tree-lined streets throughout. Very fantastic. Just really, really nice suburbs. Now, a little bit to the northwest of those 2 suburbs is another area called Polanco, which is a little bit more expensive. A little bit more roomy in the streets, a little bit more space. That would be another area that you could consider. Or alternatively,
Polanco,
further down south, and I'm probably going to butcher the name, a suburb called Coyoacan. So my apologies for my pronunciation of these places. That could be a nice area to stay as well. Also well serviced by metro, but you're going to be facing a little bit more of a travel time to get up to Centro and to visit the sites around Centro. There's plenty to do in the historic area and plenty to see. Just spending a day walking around and admiring the scenery is well worth it. Now, once you're in that main plaza, why don't we just start from the plaza, which is where you're going to be coming out of the metro. Obviously, you're right in front of the cathedral, so you walk in there and have a look around. At one corner of the plaza is a very old hotel called the Gran Hotel, and I'd recommend going in there and just having a look at the area inside. It's fantastic, a very old hotel. They do have a restaurant up on the roof overlooking the plaza. That can get very busy though, so there's often a little bit of a wait time to get up there. Now, diagonally opposite that hotel and adjacent to the cathedral are ruins of the original Aztec or Mexica city that existed when the Spanish arrived. There's not much of it left because the Spanish pulled it apart and used the stone to build a church, but it's worth walking around and walking through the ruins. And at the back there's also a really good museum that I'd recommend you visiting. Plenty of other things to see in the centre. The old post office, now a museum, is worth seeing. It's just a fantastic old building. Bella Artes I mean, another fantastic building. There's just so many, if you like that sort of thing, so many fantastic buildings to see in Mexico and Mexico City. If you go to the top of the Sears building, there's a little cafe on the 8th floor, I think it is. Now you might have to queue for 5 minutes just to get access to the cafe, but it's well worth it. You're going to have to buy something, just buy a drink or something when you're in there. But the views and photo opportunity from the cafe makes it well worth it. So definitely get to the Sears Cafe. Now don't forget to stop at one of the many taco stands throughout the city. Fantastic food, well priced, budget food, and tastes great. There's no shortage of them, they're everywhere, and certainly try as many as you can out. Fantastic. Saw this as I was walking past, don't know what it is, don't know what it's called. It's like a purple corn base with a little bit of chicken and coriander and cheese and squeeze of lime. Tastes great. If you're not staying in Coyoacan, I'd recommend going down there for half a day just to have a walk through the markets down there. Have some food as well, nice food in there. And while you're down there, I'd suggest visiting the Trotsky Museum. So Trotsky was one of the original revolutionaries in Soviet, or what became Soviet Russia back in 1917 with Lenin and Stalin. When Lenin died, I'm not going to get into a history lesson here, but just to make a long story short, when Lenin died, Stalin purged people he didn't like, and one of those was Trotsky. Now Trotsky initially didn't end up in Siberia or end up in a hole. He pretty much got exiled and ended up wandering the world for a while, and eventually settled in Mexico City. But he was an outspoken critic of Stalin, and Stalin had pretty much had enough of him, and in mafia terms put out a hit on him. First couple of attempts failed, but they got him the third time with an ice pick. So there's a museum, or the residence he was staying in down in Coyoacan has been turned into a museum, so that's worth having a look at. If you're of a certain age and you hear the word Trotsky, you may remember a song by the Stranglers called No More Heroes. I know when I first lined up the Trotsky Museum for a visit, I had that song playing around in my head all morning. It was a real earworm. Anyway, look that up. I might put a link below, and you can decide whether or not you like that music. The museum itself, it's not, there's not a lot there. It's pretty much the house as it was when Trotsky was living there. Ironically, they're selling Trotsky merchandise. Ironic given that he was one of the communist heroes. I mean, people of that sort of personality type, bearing in mind that he's one of the revolutionary leaders, leading a lot of people, and people look up to him. Those sort of personality types. I mean, he was born in 1879. I think if he was born in 1979, he'd probably be running a hedge fund now. So the other thing to do while you're in Mexico City is to visit the ruins at Teotihaucan. Again, I'm butchering the pronunciation, so my apologies to all of those people who know how to pronounce these words. My humble apologies. Now you can get there by public transport, by the metro and then adjoining buses. But when I looked into it, it was going to take about 2 hours to get there, so I ended up going on a guided tour, which was around about $30 for the day, and I'll talk a little bit in a moment about the other things that the tour involved. So if you don't feel like taking 2 hours to get there, seeing the sights, and then 2 hours back with, I think there was 3 different changes along the way. So it was metro, then bus, then another bus in order to get there. The guided tours pick you up at some of the major hotels. I wasn't staying at a major hotel, but if you can get yourself to places like the Hilton or the Sheraton, brand name hotels, they'll pick you up there. And the metro will get you to those places pretty easily, regardless of where you were staying. So that was well worth it. It was a guided tour, so we did have an English-speaking guide taking us through the ruins. Guided tours around the world take you into souvenir shops. So you're the product, right? They're getting their commission and kickback. So these are things that you've got to endure if you're going on a guided tour. Now, this wasn't the worst thing I've ever been on. After that, we got taken to an overpriced tourist restaurant. Again, these are the things that you've got to endure on a guided tour. That's how they keep the prices down, by getting their kickbacks from all these other places that they take you to, because you're the product. You're not the customer, you're the product. Then on the way back, just on the outskirts of Mexico City, we stopped to see one of the major churches. That was interesting enough. Nice views from nearby. Probably one of the interesting things, and something I should have mentioned earlier when I was talking about the centro area of Mexico City. So why don't I backtrack a little bit? So when I was on a walking tour, and I didn't mention that either, I'd suggest in most cities, when you get there and you've never been there before, go on a walking tour just to get your bearings. When I was on the walking tour, the guide pointed to many of the old buildings, and I guess we weren't that observant to begin with, because we're just sort of in a new place, we're walking around starry-eyed. But he did point out that a lot of the buildings are moving and they're not quite upright. And that's because the original city was an island in the middle of a lake when the Spanish arrived, and once they conquered the area, they drained the lake and added about 3 metres of topsoil, and that led to some dodgy foundations, and as a result a lot of the buildings have sort of shifted and moved. And that was quite evident at this other church, where some adjacent older churches were quite noticeably off centre and leaning in one direction or the other. The thing that's a real must-see in Mexico City is the Museum of Anthropology, and you can get there pretty easily by metro. There's a metro station, maybe, 10-minute walk from the museum, and when you're going there, I'd allow at least 2 hours, maybe 3, to have a look around. There can be long queues, so bear that in mind depending on the time of day that you're visiting. And you will have to check in your backpacks and anything else that you're carrying with you when you arrive before you're allowed into the museum proper. You can buy tickets once you get there, you don't need to buy them online. You'll find plenty of places online that will say you jump the queue tickets for 2 or 3 times the actual entry cost. Whether you want to do that and chance that is up to you. I didn't bother, I just got in the queue for a little while. It wasn't too big when I first got there, but it was enormous when I'd left. And I just got in the queue, possibly waited about 20 minutes and bought my ticket and went in. So while I've been talking, I've put up a few pictures of the sort of things that you can expect to see in there. For me, I thought it was quite informative and educational. Obviously, well, not so, maybe not so obviously, but I was aware of Aztecs and Mayans and these people, and obviously the Spanish conquest. But there was certainly a lot of information about other pre-Columbian Mesoamerican peoples and civilizations that I was unaware of. So yeah, very informative, and definitely add it to your list of things that you need to do when you're in Mexico City.